you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Soren. Good to hear
Great,
you.
great.
So, are you sitting in
Wonderful.
your native land of Denmark right now?
Yes, I'm sitting in a very unique place in Denmark, close to a fjord and surrounded by stone settings in the place where I live, actually. So it's a very beautiful area of Denmark, but it's flat compared to places in US.
Aha. Well, I didn't know that they had even small fjords in Denmark. I thought of it as a flat peninsula sitting out there
No.
in the between the Baltic and the Atlantic, right? But who knows?
It's much more varied.
Great. Oh, good. Well, I'm happy for you that it's more varied than I thought. Um, so it's been lovely having you at the Fairy Congress in the past. You've been there in person, and I can tell everybody that you're just a fun kind of guy, and that it's really nice having Soren around. He's just always, he seems to smile almost all the time. And so, as a human being, it's just great to have you around. So you come back.
Thank you.
And I will tell the group that that I was impressed when I read your bio that you were teaching theosophy for 30 years. That really counts for something in my eyes, that somebody would study theosophy that hard so they could teach it, because that really helps people understand the subtle realms. They were a big movement for communication with the subtle realms from the late 1800s on.
Yeah.
So, and then you've written 22 books, and it sounds impressive. I mean, there's that's a nice number, and I'm especially interested that 6 of your books are written on the Sidhe, which, as far as I know, might make you the most published person writing on the Sidhe, except for some novelists. There are some novelists out there with Sidhe, sort of like not trilogies, but long series. But at any rate, so you've allied yourself with the Lorien Association a lot. How many years with the Lorien Association?
Well, it goes back to 2007. And I met David in Arizona, and we immediately connected. And the whole thing about the Sidhe came up later. So I really felt a deep resonance with the Lorien teachings and David especially. And that has kept until now. He's a very good friend. And the Lorien Association has published 2 of my Sidhe-related books, and I'm very grateful for that too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be reviewing one of your books tomorrow when I do my Who's Who in Fairyland a session. So you'll be featured there. So you might show up. Now get a little glory. So so you work with Lorien, and Lorien, David Spangler, and Jeremy Berg, and Freya all have written on the Sidhe. So between the 3 of you, I would say that you're the biggest repository, so to speak, of modern day Sidhe knowledge that's out there. But if you combine your books, there's a lot there. And so anybody interested in the Sidhe would be well advised to study Soren's and Lorien's books, David's. And so, so I'm excited that you're going to today take us to learn a little bit more about our ElvenWildness inside. So everybody will have to give them a hand afterwards, but you can all shake your hands at them. Thank you very much, Soren, for being with us.
Oh, thank you to all of you. And thank you so much, Skeeter. And I'm deeply honored and happy to be here again on an online Fairy Congress. And yes, my theme for today is unlocking your ElvenWildness. And in a way, it is another way of talking about the inner Sidhe nature in us. And it all began for me personally in 2011-12. David Spangler started teaching about the Sidhe, and the Sidhe is the same as when we talk about elves. It is a species on this planet, not entirely on the same frequency as us, but at the same time, they are in a way physical, and they are our kindred spirits. They are our relatives. And something I never expected was that I was being contacted by a male she. I didn't expect anything like that to happen because I'm not a so-called clairvoyant. So my first impressions, I really had to get some help to discern what was going on. And David was very helpful with this. He encouraged me to just relax and be open to what was going on. And it developed into a relationship with a male she who I sensed him very, very clearly, vividly, visible for my inner eye in the beginning. And then it faded slowly out as we were getting accustomed to each other. So I'm sensing him as a friend, as a relative, like a brother. And he's not dictating anything to me. I'm not transmitting or channeling things from him. It's a kind of collaborative friendship where his intentions are sometimes shared with me, and it's my responsibility what I do with it, but we have common interests. And I'm going to open up to that immediately because first of all, let me say, I'm going to share and hopefully inspire you. And then an hour ahead or something like, I'm going to make a meditative exercise, and then I'll open up for dialogue in the last half an hour, if that is good for you. And you are very welcome to write down questions or comments, but we'll take it in the end, so there's a possibility of an exchange. And this sometimes is a very important part of a sharing like this. But if I could just, because I want to get to the whole theme of our inner elven wildness. So I could start by saying that we are being called by Gaia, or the earth. From many angles, we are being called to take upon us our whole humanity, and not just a very limited part of what it means to be human. And we are being approached by our elven or she relatives in increasing degree, because we need to come together again. We are one family, and we are in a critical situation in history because of the way humanity treats the planet. So one of the key reasons why we are being approached by the she or our elven relatives is, to the best of my understanding, and also to David's and Jeremy and other people's understanding, that we are urged to uncover our hidden elven nature, because we need that component in order to navigate the challenges we are in the midst of. And many people don't think this is at all possible. I mean, I'm certain many of you would find this a very natural thing to talk about, but to many people, this is purely mumbo jumbo. I mean, even to talk about beings that are not physical entirely in the way that we are is so far out that conversation stops. So in a way, we can kind of open up the agenda by talking about our elven wildness, even in normal terms, even for people who are not into what Fairy Congress is opening up to, or other collective communities of people. Actually, my experience is that people understand what is at stake and what we miss, because the urgency of our situation in the world today is that we have become so tame, so predictable, so one-dimensional, that we cannot solve the problems of humanity and we cannot solve the problems we have ourselves without opening up to wildness. So my theme here is that wildness, not blind wildness, not instinctive wildness, but conscious wildness, something that we are actually able to evolve today. Such a wildness is needed. We need wild solutions. We need wild boldness. We need wild hearts. We need wild imagination. And it is all at hand within us. So the wonderful thing, and also the paradox is that so much beauty and magic is at hand. But if we continue along the route we have chosen recently for the last pair of 100 years, we will face challenges we cannot solve. So we are urged to uncover the hidden treasure within us. Our humanity needs the elven component, the wild factor. And I'm trying to open up to what is all this wildness about. But it's important that we understand that we have imprisoned ourselves by an emotionally ruled intellect, a so-called rationality, technological rationality. Rationality alone is futile. It cannot solve our situation. We need a completely new, you could say, life musicality. It has been said that the world is in disenchantment. The magic is gone. All that is left is a dead-like reality from majority of humanity. Completely crazy situations with, poverty, pollution, global climate change, and it is as if a great part of humanity is still stunned by it. We need a re-enchantment in order to open up to this possibility. And this is why we need to explore the ElvenWildness within us, because we cannot point at the world and say, they out there, they need to solve the problems so we can get a beautiful world. The solution lies here. And that's also why the Sidhe or the elves who contacted David and Jeremy, they don't want it to be about them. They don't want us to be so fascinated by their nature that we forget what it's all about. We are in a situation where we have a unique possibility of a deeper reawakening of humanity. And I know many, many people are talking about awakening, but it is true. So the funny thing is that our elven wildness is anything but complicated. It is so deep and so simple that it surpasses all the intricate technological constructions. Our elven wildness is our birthright, but we have kind of lured ourselves into a maze of getting lost, and we can't see it. Most of us can't see it. I mean, many of us here gathered might have a great sense of it, but I'm talking to us to go deeper. So where is our elven wildness? I would say, put it in a special way, it is hidden next to where we search. I say it again. It is hidden next to where we search. It is just beside where we look. We are so focused on gazing with fixed eyes on things and processes and come from A to B. Our elven wildness is in the space between. It is in the space between. And that's a part of the mystery, because we need to loosen our engagement so we are not so object fixed or goal fixed. We cannot sense the Sidhe or the elves if we are very particle focused. We need to be field focused. And another thing is that our elven wildness, if I may put it like this, is wrapped in our first innocence. We came into this world with our first innocence. As babies, we were innocent. And then socialization and growing up and education started, and we were really trained to forget the most obvious truth. And we were hypnotized into, it sounds very negative. I'm overemphasizing things here in order to get my point through. We were hypnotized into a world of complexity, very, very difficult and hard to live in. So gradually our first innocence was hid under layers upon layers of training and learning how to forget, really. The more we fixed our intention purely on the intellect and very limited personal emotions, we lost it. So we need to call it forth again, this first innocence. And then, in my words, it becomes the second innocence, the mature innocence of adult human beings who are not naive, but who have a softness of the heart that is so deeply needed in the world. So the elven wildness is full of a playful simplicity. It is very intelligent. It is a lyrical, not a logical, but a lyrical intelligence. It is a musicality, a life musicality that invites us into a deep connectedness with the world. It is like a love affair, falling in love again with life and rewilding our imagination. Tamed our imagination so much that the majority of people in the world say, no, I don't believe that. No, I don't believe that. I believe what I can see and what we can measure, what we can count. That is what I believe. So this is our challenge. We are really being challenged by what can make us open ourselves. And the problem is, the more we stare at complexity, the more we forget the authority of the heart, the more we give our own dignity away and leave ourselves, the more the world is in turmoil. So let me try to end the negative perspective by try to frame where we have ended. And I may be over exaggerating a little bit, but it's to make my point very clear. We are supposed to be ourselves. Instead of that, we have sold out our identity and we have ended in absentness. We have left to a very great degree ourselves, and we have ended in a very pale and vague situation. So this absentness should be to be ourselves has kind of cooled down our heart. So we have ended, I'm speaking very generally now, we have ended in a heart cold. We have lost the heart contact, so our hearts are more cold. It's an image I'm using, of course. But this combination of, instead of being ourselves, we have ended in absentness, we have left ourselves to a great degree. Instead of being gentle and with soft hearts, we have ended in coldness, which creates cynicism. And finally, it kind of opens up to our minds, and our minds have become very tame, very predictable. We become narrow-minded. We have frozen our minds. So we sit on this very, very unpleasant mountain of absentness, coldness, and tameness. And, well, it's a very serious situation. So what do we do? It can in any way relate to how I'm describing in general terms the human crisis. You can also see that it's the reason why huge problems and difficulties are not being solved easily in the world. If hearts were more warm and gentle, we would immediately stop the poverty in the world, because it takes so short a time to stop poverty in the world. If we were more ourselves and less absent from ourselves, we would joyfully honor each person's uniqueness. And if our minds were not so tame, we would love to hear bold and daring thoughts and ideas to solutions in the world, and we would go for it. We would eagerly go for it with enthusiasm and excitement. So let me try to put it in positive terms. What I picked up from my she friend, who I named Fjellbor, is it came years back when he said, well, the idea of being you and being gentle and being wild could be an idea to pursue. So this is the trinity I am working to make alive in what I do with my work, when I have workshops, when I have people in individual sessions, when I write books, when I travel and have journeys with people. It is be you, be gentle, be wild. And in that direction, I mean, first you have to start looking at, what does it mean to be you? What does it mean to be you? So this is finding my personal home and my personal value. That is the sacred ground I stand upon. I need to have faith in me, first of all. It doesn't help me to have faith in God or distant powers. First of all, I need to have faith in me, because I am standing on the ground of my being. And if I don't trust anything that comes from me, well, everything is futile. So being you is to stand on the sacred ground. And the more I stand on my own sacred ground, I gradually open up to the heart of being gentle. Because I discover that being me can never be an isolated thing. It is always something that stretches out in the greater world, and there I discover the connectedness, and this inspires the heart and the gentleness. So with the gentleness, I start to find my shared Gaian home, which is I am a co-being together with a multitude of other beings, and we share home. And this is where love re-enters into my life. And with being me and being gentle, it is safe to open into the new form of wildness, which is to dare to journey into the wilderness of my greater continent, where everything is magical. And this is also what ignites hope for the world. Not, oh, I hope, but the burning hope that is the vision of something that can become entirely different than it is at this moment. So there you have it, being you, being gentle, and being wild is the gateways to faith, love, and hope, or faith, hope, and charity, as is known in the Christian tradition. So there's no divide between what we're talking about here and what Christ was teaching when he walked on earth. But being you, the starting point, is about recognizing, and this is a very important point. The Sidhe or the elves are approaching us more and more. Just think about the fact that if we need to connect with them, we need to honor ourselves. How could they ever find us attractive if we loaded ourselves, if we looked at ourselves as sinful, shameful beings who are unworthy with a dirty ego and so on? And this is often the story that even people in spiritual circles tell themselves, my little ego needs to be taken out of the equation, and then I can meet other beings. I say the opposite. I say being you means that you honor your dignity of being human. You honor yourself and recognize your goodness and your worthiness. And although it is very difficult for many people, this is an absolutely necessary component in opening up to the ElvenWildness in us, and also to connect with the elves or the Sidhe around us. They want to meet us in our human dignity. So we are equals. We can stand erect, joyfully greeting each other and inspire each other for a better world. So being you is about standing deeply anchored in yourself. And the more you do that, you open up your roots, so to speak, open up to the greater land that you're part of. And this is where connectedness comes in. And the elven nature is always in connectedness. It never loses connectedness. When we are too much trapped in our usual humanity, human nature, we often tend to lose connectedness. And that's a big difference from the Sidhe or the elven nature. They never lose connectedness. So the wonderful opening is that the more deeply grounded we become, the more we experience that we are not isolated. I'm not isolated. I'm so much connected. My empowerment comes from the fact that I'm not an isolated individual. I'm always part of the greater whole. And this is where gentleness comes in. This is where we can unfold our loving space, and we can hold space for whatever is. even the bad things, the very hard things. And being gentle is also to listen to the aliveness, to the heart in everything around us. And then we more and more start to rest softly in the world and really sense that we belong to the world. We are not alienated from the world. We are kind of re-invited back to the world. And then we can really engage with wildness. We can start to learn how it is to flow on the wave of the present, how we can discover the fountain of constant renewal. We rewild, we set free our imagination, and we open up deep and beyond the Shire of Hobbitland, and we are in the greater continent of the Gaian space in the world. So it might sound very easy what I'm trying to share here, but actually, I want to be as specific as I can and to give you some suggestions on how to move with this. So I'm trying to share with you, first of all, 3 signs of ElvenWildness activity. So I'll start with this 3 very distinct and clear and simple signs of ElvenWildness activity in you and me. First of all, and this is something that is a gift to the ability of being you. So the first point is liveliness, livingness. So pay attention to whatever comes up in your daily life that has a certain freshness, something that makes you in a way that brings more light in your eyes. It is like morning has broken. It is a freshness that has in it upliftment. Sometimes, please remember what I said earlier on, it is just next to focus. So what we need to kind of rediscover is that most of the important things, they happen so often just next to where we focus. Then if we just stare and focus, we can't perceive it. It's gone again. It's like, a morning window, and it's what's it called when you have fog on your morning window when it's cold, and then the sun comes and it's gone. You know what I mean? It is a small signs of tingling aliveness that brings a sense of yes, small drops or droplets of sparkling joy or life-affirming situations. These droplets of moments are constant attempts that life makes so we can discover that it is good to be here. It is so good to be here. And there's so much awaiting right now. Life is miraculously unique, and I am supposed to be me. So my first sign, so please remember that, is liveliness or aliveness, waking up signs. And they are scattered all over our daily lives. Sometimes they seem so tiny that if we are habitually used to focus on the daily negative news of COVID-19 and political turmoil and pollution not being solved and so on. We focus on that all the time, and we reinforce these circular movements of repetition. It is very, very difficult, even for miraculous drops, to enter into our being. So we need to loosen up to this liveliness, these tiny signs of tingling, sparkling awareness. This is the first. The second sign of ElvenWildness in your and my life, and this is what especially goes to being gentle. It is when we experience life resonance. Life resonance. This means when we encounter situations where we are in eye level with another. It can be another human being. It can be a meeting we have with a friend. It can be just a stranger we meet shortly, and something beautifully happens. We just look at each other and we know something is happening here that is deeply meaningful, and life continues. But it can also be an encounter with other beings, that human beings, I mean, other species, physical species, non-physical species. It doesn't matter. It is moments where we experience deeper connectedness, where we have this feeling of being part of a greater story unfolding, where we have this, yes, there's something very important here. I sense that clearly. And I become, a tuning fork. And I just vibrate with other tuning forks. And this also very often happens if we invite it into our lives. So this second sign of ElvenWildness that really invites us to the adventure of rediscovering the earth in all its beauty. This is a very, very important sign. The third sign, and this goes specifically to our being wild, it is when we have experiences of not only liveliness, not only life resonance, but wonderment, where we have moments where we sense the world is full of wonders, and I need to engage. I engage with my amazement of what is going on here. I even sense a burning curiosity about what is this mystery unfolding, and I'm willing to go very far into uncharted territory to explore what life is about. Wonderment, moments of wonderment kind of entering into my consciousness is the third of my 3 signs of ElvenWildness activity. But let me try to translate this into some simple practices. So now I try to be as specific as I can in how can we enhance this in our lives. And I need to tell you, there's not a thing what I'm sharing with you that has any kind of theoretical relevance to me. I mean, yes, secondarily, it has a kind of theoretical interest, but it comes from personal experiences. my own life has never been anywhere near where it is today than what it was 10 or 15 years back when I didn't work with this or play with this, I would rather say. But my first simple suggested ElvenWildness exercise, it is so simple. And I'm sorry to say, it is not a new thing to say, but I do it anyway, because sometimes the simple things that has been said thousands of times need to be said again. So here it comes. Approach everything with new eyes. And I mean it. Approach everything with new eyes. This is what is sometimes called beginner's mind. But what does it mean? It means that I'm not wrapping my perception in past memories or future expectations. And please remember that this is what we so often do when we meet other people. We meet them through a veil of, oh, you again. Yeah. We don't say this, but we think it. Yeah. You again. You always blah, blah, blah. I'm so tired of it. I long for this and this to happen, but I can't stand when you do this or that or whatever. And what is lost here? Reality. But because what has been going on is just pollutions within our own mind of our thoughts, but we block the meeting with the other person. So see things with new eyes means that we attempt to approach everything as if it is something that has never happened before. And it never has happened before, because nothing is exactly the same twice. So approaching life in its wonderful uniqueness in the present moment, meeting things as much as possible with fresh eyes, is a wonderful exercise in landing more and more in the world of being me in the open way and not in the cloaked way, the hidden way, because I'm totally trapped in all my past perceptions and my future imaginations. So see with new eyes. The second simple ElvenWildness exercise, which mostly goes to the heart, or to the possibility of being gentle, is encounter everything where it is. Encounter everything where it is. Not where you think it is. Make it possible for things to actually turn up and be met. Not speculating about it. Every time we put speculations in front of us, we cannot meet things where they are. Let me give you a very simple example. If I look up to another person and we say, this is me. When I look up to another person, I go down like this and then I look up. This is not reality. This is not fair. This is not where things are supposed to be. We need to come up here and connect. Oh, but what do I do if I meet Dalai Lama? You stay right here. You don't, oh, Dalai Lama, Dalai Lama. When I do this, I break the connection and I don't encounter Dalai Lama where he is. We could also do it the other way. If this is a person we're going to meet and we feel superior, we go up like this and we look down and we say, oh, yes, one day you will also become as evolved and as conscious and divinely present as I am. And then we can meet, my friend. But I can give you some crumbles from my treasure house right now. You know, I'm trying to tell you how we are not supposed to do things. So the simple act of meeting things where they are, exactly where they are, just completely open. This is the second innocence. Wow. Yes, here it is. And let me give you one funny example from my own life that I have experienced for the last year. Because last winter, I started becoming a winter bather. And here in Denmark, it's probably also at your place, but water becomes very cold in wintertime. And I gradually started during the autumn to go into the water and continue as if it was a very long summer. And I managed to do that. But I have to say that in around December, it was not very, normal to be in water any longer. And then I clearly discovered when I went down to the fjord here where I was going to winter bathe, my mind was going, all sorts of things before I went down to the water. And my life partner, she so beautifully said to me, well, Soren, one day you stop speculating. You stop thinking about it. You just go down to the water. You go into the water. You go up from the water again. And it's wonderful. And it happened to me. So I have to say, I don't speculate when I go into freezingly cold water. 2 days ago, I was in the water. It was 3 degrees Celsius. It's just around freezing point. And yes, I didn't stay there for half an hour, but there was no speculations. And it's acutely alive and very, very wonderful. And, there is a coldness, yes, but then there comes a rush from the body, and the rush heats the body up. So you have this crazy situation of being cold and warm at the same time. And I'm just trying to say, this using the secret of meeting things where they are and don't go away in speculations, it makes life much more easy and full of wonder. I have had so many absolutely amazing moments in the fjord and during winter bathing, both before, under, during and after. So this is practiced here nearby. The third and final practice that I'm going to introduce to you. So the two first was see with new eyes, encounter everything where it is. And here comes the third suggested exercise, specifically relating to being wild. And it's very, very special. Discover the magic of pausing. Discover the magic of pausing. Or I could put it a little bit different. I could say, discover the magic of in-betweenness. In-betweenness. Not there or there, but loosen up. And the reason why I use the word discover the magic of pausing is that when we pause between this and that, that's exactly where it happens. We think it happens here and it happens there. So I have to go from here to there. But actually, the mystery unfolds between here and there. And this is the wonder of life. It is in the present where we are not grappling at something. We are not squeezing at something. We loosen up, and in pausing, the wind blows untamed. This is the wardrobe gate to Narnia. This is the Harry Potter platform 9 3/4. This is the magical opening. It is in-betweenness. In betweenness, we can engage with the vastness of reality. And this is where wildness comes towards us. Yes, finally you are there. Now we have been waiting for so many ages. Yes, welcome to the wonderful world of discoveries. And this is where we become bold, warm-hearted, and deeply grounded in ourselves at the same time. So this was my threefold suggestion. See with new eyes, encounter everything where it is, discover the magic of pausing. And please notice how simple these suggestions are. And this is partly the reason why many people don't do it, because they expect complicated, expensive exercises. You can buy them at very expensive educational workshops, and it takes years and years to just come a little bit further into the ElvenWildness. And when you have worked hard and long with it for many incarnations, you may have assembled enough good karma to deserve a little droplet of ElvenWildness. You know, I hope you see what I'm really letting go here. It is my own theosophical background of earning your right to greatness by being a very humble disciple for many lifetimes, doing a lot of hard. I'm saying it in the American way with a potato in my mouth, the hard way. And then you finally will earn ElvenWildness. No friends. Our elven relatives, the Sidhe, are our good neighbors. They are very, very close to us, and they smilingly encourage us to open up to the magical simpleness of life, which is the beginning of the journey into the forgotten land of Gaia, which is the beginning of the green revolution, which is the inner green revolution, which will actually push everything so that the outer green revolution will finally happen. We see small signs of it in the world today, but we need much more intensively to open to this journey. So, my friends, I'm going to make a very short meditative attunement, and then I will love to open up. I see many of you have already written things, so I'll go into that in 5 minutes. But please let us just breathe for a moment. So if you feel comfortable with it, just close your eyes for a moment. And breathe gently and also friendly. Start by breathing friendly. You can almost breathe with a smile. And then connect with your sense of being in your body. And greet your body as the miracle that makes incarnation possible. Thank you to the vastness of the body and the depth of the organic wisdom that keeps us alive. So in a way, your body is a living mountain. To get the sense that you are silently sitting as a living mountain in your own right. And as you breathe and have this deep feeling of being as a silent mountain, then imagine that you're connected with the entire earth, the amazing Gaia. And in the center of your mountain, imagine like a cave. And in this cave burns a fire. It is the sacred, gentle, peaceful fire of your heart, right in the center of your mountain. It is a wonderful cave, and you can hear and see and smell and sense the fire. And when you are in this cave in your mountain, there is a pathway up above you. It's like a magical tunnel up through the mountain to the summit. And as you sit in silence, you see how the flames kind of create fire butterflies that rise up through the tunnel in the mountain. It is like a magical funnel of fire butterflies dancing up through the inner part of the mountain. And they open out up and release themselves above the mountain and dance around a multitude of fire butterflies, dancing around, bringing light and magic to the world. Sense this feeling that you are always a living mountain with a cave, with a warm fire, releasing fire butterflies into the world. And you are never alone. There are many, many, many other mountains around you, releasing fire butterflies. And the world is full of magic. Thank you so much. And gradually return to your outer senses with this inner perception alive. And in your own pace, open your eyes as you would like it. And I am going to look into questions. And let's see what has come up. First of all, there is a question: is that male she an aspect of your higher self essence that can now embody? Do you take your elven wildness to gatherings such that you become the life of the party? That's a good way to put it. And then Annie Clark says, she is actually Sidhe. Yes, I can show you this because the book here that I wrote with Jeremy, Call of the She, which is my last book, there you can see how it is spelled. So she does refer to the female part of our humanity, or the she as well. She is the old Irish word for the elves. Is it my higher self essence? Well, honestly, no, I'm absolutely sure, but it doesn't matter really. But if you ask me, I would say that Fjeldur is not a part of my higher self essence. It is an individual outside me in the she realm, which is all around us. But he has helped me discover my own inner she, and in that respect, you could say that a part of me has become aware of something resembling Fjeldur in his she consciousness. I hope this is a little bit helpful. I take my she wildness, my elven wildness, to gatherings and become the life of the party. Yes, I do that. I'm not sure if I know everything in that question, but yes, I'm not depending on elves or she to tell me what to do, but I love company. I love good company, and it's inspiring to be in good company, and it ignites new ideas and impulses, and that's absolutely what I do. And then Evie Claire said, in clowning, it's called innocence after experience. Well, you mean the second innocence? Wow, that's great, wonderful. And then Tom and Bruce says, I don't believe in original sin, but I totally believe in original innocence. That's the point. I mean, original sin is a theological invention of male church fathers that were struggling a lot with their own sexual desires and their own unresolved issues. And then they tried to kind of color their perception of the life of Christ and the scriptures so it fitted into their perception. Original sin is a blah, blah, blah thing, if you ask me. And the only, if I may say so, original sin is how the human mind is able to invent sinfulness as something dirty, as something not wanted or needed. I would say that all we can say about our evolution is that in the beginning we are immature, and then we gradually mature. And when we mature into something, we step into another level, and then we are immature again. And then we evolve into another phase of matureness. And to me, life is a constant journey from immatureness to matureness, from immatureness to another matureness, and so on. And words from theological interpretations are not needed here. Brendan wrote, I'm recalling, even though this is Tolkien, not what Soren is referring here, that before the hobbits perceived the elven procession, the elves at first were described as a subtle twinkling and music that came into focus gradually. I love it. I don't know details about it, but it is really a very beautiful way of talking about all the different situations where we can encounter the magic of life. And really, our elven relatives, they are also in an evolution. They can actually learn from us. And we tend to think that elves are perfect and we just need to lean into them and then we can learn from them. But I have many times discovered that Fjeldur has been amazed about discovering what we human beings are actually good at doing. And this is also part of the miracle that we are learning from each other. It is a shared journey we are on. We're not trying just to learn from the elves or the sea. We are learning from them and they are learning from us. And then Tom and Bruce says, the actual she seemed to resemble Tolkien's high elves. I totally agree. And Brendan says, makes sense given that he was a master of European myth and language, the stories from which were amalgamated into his works. Yes, good comment. Kara says, if Elven represent our authentic innocence, what aspect of us would you say the she reflects within us? This is tricky. If Elven or elves represent our authentic innocence, what aspect of us would you say the she reflects within us? It is as if you say the same thing twice. So I don't know how to answer this, because Maria down below says Elven and she are the same thing. And then Bluestein says, is Elven and she a different species from fairy? Whoa, this is becoming a little interesting now. Well, it easily takes time to go into this. But as Tom and Bruce says, fairy is a broader category in this context anyway. I totally agree. This is really deep and it would take quite some time to go into. But if you take fairy as a broad headline, I would say that the she or the elves, our very kindred spirits, our close relatives, they go under a part of that headline. But there are, in my understanding, different categories of beings that are simply generally called fairies. So in a way, Fairy Congress is not just about one species, it's about many species. But it's very complicated to go into depth with, but it is a broader term, fairy, yes. So, but if you go to Ireland, where the term the she comes from, the Irish people would sometimes just say the fairies. You need to look into the world of the fairies, and then they mean the she, and then at other times they use other names for it, and it becomes a little tricky. But I would say like this, that what was said before, that the elves of the she resemble the high elves in Tolkien's writings. I would totally agree in that. We talk about tall, erect beings resembling human beings to a certain extent. They have individuality. They have very clear minds. They have open hearts. They have this wildness that comes from the fact that they have evolved differently from us. But we come from the same root. So it is funny to say, but it's true anyway, that they also have within them a seed of humanness. because as we come from the same source, we share the parts within us. So the she have a rudimentary human seed, and we have within us a rudimentary she or elven seed. And what I'm talking about as the unfoldment of our elven wildness is this seed within us that we find when we look next to where we gaze. We find it when we listen and pause. We find it when we open ourselves up to meeting things exactly where they are without speculations, and when we exercise the art of seeing things, encountering things with new eyes all the time, then triviality falls away and the miracle of life enters into space. And
I'm going to pause just for a second there, Soren.
yes,
I'm looking at Kara Reese's question. I think what she's asking, perhaps, which I would be interested in hearing, is we have things to learn from the she by learning about our elven wildness. What things do we have in humans that they can learn from? What do we offer to them, I think is the question.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Great. What we can, well, again, it's a huge thing, but the she are quite amazed about the fact that we have endured in solid matter and enabled to be quite creative in this very density we are in when we are in a physical body. So I remember the first time when I sensed Fjeldur, I was inviting him, no, not the first time I sensed him, but the first time I sensed his amazement about human nature. I was walking in Copenhagen a Saturday evening after I had a Saturday workshop about the she. And it was a cold November evening, looking into the shop windows of Copenhagen. And then I invited Fjeldur to look at the windows through me, so sort of invited him to sense the human world in the dark November evening and the shop windows. And then I sensed him. It was as if he came in and he lended I was not going away. He was just present within me, and he gazed and he looked at in his own way at the shop windows and through me. And then he was filled with amazement. Wow, this you do, you humans? This is crazy. And actually, he started communicating with me, and I had to run back to my small place where I was sleeping during the night, because I needed to write down his intentions and his reactions to my being in the human world. And he wrote through me, he kind of gave me impressions of he so much wanted to honor our humaneness, honor the fact that we can be in this density and we have this stamina, because the she are in a much more light world. Their energy is much more fluid, and they don't know about this stamina that we develop. It also develops a power that can manifest in ways they are not able to do. So this is a very important part of how the she can learn from us, and much insight came out of that. Another thing is that we humans, we experience loneliness. We experience isolation. And out of this loneliness and isolation, we develop compassion, and compassion as a warm heart activity, that in this density of isolation, we suffer a lot, yes, but we also develop compassion, which is another vibration of heart activity that the Sidhe are not that close to. It's kind of it's a dialect of love that they are not used to. It's like a warm fire, and their heart activity is more like sparkling starlight. So just think about it for a moment. If you have the human warm fire heart and you have the Elven or Sidhe sparkling starlight heart, it's very different worlds. So they are also learning about the warmth of human compassion when they engage with us. It's not that they don't have compassion, but it's different. So I hope this, with these two examples, can give a little sense of how the Sidhe can learn from us. Oh, there are so many comments. I try to go on. I like to find the love songs that the universe continually sends me. Beautiful, Carol. I love that. John says, a lot of people use fairy to refer to nature spirits, and Sidhe are part of the fairy realms, but closer to human in some ways. They deal with nature, but are not necessarily nature spirits. I totally agree. But some Sidhe cooperate so closely with the devas and nature spirits that they end up resembling them in theirs. They kind of form shift. They are excellent form shifters, but when they work in close collaboration with nature spirits or devas, they can form shift gradually during time so much that we can actually make mistakes when we encounter the Sidhe. Some of them can resemble nature spirits or devas. I go further on. Yes, Eric, right, when he was talking about wonderment. Okay. John says, you are welcome if you want to talk more about it. Okay, that's an interesting. I'm a Sidhe incarnated human, so my perspective on the Sidhe may be different than a lot of people's, and I'm still learning to access that part of myself, as I first had to figure out being human first. That's very interesting, John. And I absolutely believe in the fact, totally, that Sidhe incarnate sometimes as human beings. I also believe that humans sometimes take a vacation into the Sidhe realm and then come back and incarnate as humans. For my own example, I feel a very great degree of closeness, and it feels as if it's part of my home, but at the same time, I sense I'm very, very human. Brendan says, this means to get in contact with the fairy realms. This means to get in contact with the fairy realms. Remind me of how you get to Neverland. Dovetails with the descriptions of the fairy folk by Tolkien, almost like these authors were leaving breadcrumb trails for citizens of a more domesticated age to get back to the wild when the time came. I love that, Brendan. Wonderful comment. And Tom and Bruce says, I think the blindness Soren talks about is what the Toltecs call domestication. Yes, domestication. We have become so domesticated that everything is you press that button and you get that result. You press that button, you get that result. This is the automation or automation of the human nature, which is really destroying our possibilities of waking up. And Leela says pausing is like looking at the other perimeter of our vision. That's deep. Noticing out of our normal perception. Okay, yes, and I could also put it like this. There is what we... Pausing is also becoming aware of what is out of focus. We are so used to look at focus, but when we kind of loosen up to what is around the focus, something happens. And this is also a way of putting, when we are very much in the focus all the time, we're going from A to B, from B to C, and so on. But if we loosen up, while we are on our journey, things around us becomes more vividly perceptible to us. Mossman says, when moths fly into flame portals, they come out as fire butterflies. That's beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful. Soren, Eric Morris says, Soren, will you be publishing more of your existing books in other languages, perhaps English? Yes, I will. And I just want to mention shortly, my first book in English was in 2015, and it is called The Wild Alliance, and it is published by the Lauren Press. And this is the first book, Lauren Press. Then came Finding Your Elven Heart, and this came in 2020 by Finhorn Press. And actually, this book is coming out this year, this spring, in Germany, in German. And that's wonderful because I didn't expect that to happen. So Finding Your Elven Heart will become in German language. Then Call of the Sidhe that I made with Jeremy is especially about the two poets, W.B. Yeats and his very close and wise friend, G.W. Russell, also known as A.E. Their poems, they made many she poems, and I am opening up to this world, and Jeremy has made illustrations, and they are from Ireland. And the question you asked was, am I going to publish more in English? Yes, absolutely. I'm all over it. But the problem I have is that I also have to publish in Danish, and it's double work all the time. So my 4 Danish books, She, the Elven Force, Wild Spirituality, The Forgotten Land, and the last one, Wild Heart, they could all be translated into English, but it takes a lot of energy and effort. And yes, I will write new books in English. And what I am working with at this moment, and partly what I'm sharing with you here, is being woven into a part of new books. Okay, let's see. Bramble says, profound, the last several months, wild, becoming wild, keeps coming up in my magic. So much synchronicity. Yes, synchronicity is what happens. And this is deeply helpful, grateful. Thank you. Carol says, thank you for putting into words my experience with so much enthusiasm and liveliness. I can't help it. Sorry. Really loved your presentation. Thank you so much. Mary C says, Soren, where can we buy your book, Call of the Sidhe, and your other books? They can be bought at Amazon.com. Thank you, Eric Morris, for...
Muted.
Am I muted? No, I'm not muted. I hope I'm not muted.
I can hear you.
You can hear me, yes?
I can hear you.
Good, good. The books can be bought at Amazon.com or Amazon UK, but they can also be bought at, if you look for Finhorn Press, they have their own places where you can buy it. But you can, Amazon.com is absolutely sure. And also Lauren Press, you can also buy it at Lauren Press, most of, at least the 2 of the books. Yes. Summer Star says, I sometimes feel like we are like gnomes in comparison to the Sidhe in what we can manipulate earth and matter in a unique way that they love to tap into. We are like the Sidhe gnomes, I say jokingly. That's beautiful. I mean, we are a Sidhe in the becoming, and our Sidhe relatives are also becoming more and more human as they engage with us. And David Spangler has a wonderful connection with a female Sidhe that he calls Mariel. And I warmly recommend that you read David's books, Conversations with the Sidhe and Engaging with the Sidhe. And when he is asking Muriel about where will this end when the she and the humans start to engage more and more. And then she openly says, we don't know. This is part of the mystery of the journey, that we don't know where it will end up if we more and more mingle our energies and blend into each other and see what comes out of it. But surely it is that the world will become different, because the green revolution from within will emerge in the outer world, and we are part of that, and we are called just now in this moment. Ron says, and hello, dear friend Ron, I find that the Shi are asking us to be fully human and at the same time develop strong contacts with them. Yes, in that way, we further the Shi-human connection that is so important for Gaia at this time. Beautifully said, Ron. I totally agree. Marjike says, what a beautiful story about the origins of compassion. Thank you. I'm pleased with it. And Maria Green says, why is it a common idea that it's dangerous to connect with the sea? Well, that's a good question. It comes from superstition in the past. And it mainly comes also from the Christian past, because the she has been experienced by Christianity as part of the fallen angels. Don't engage with, they exist, yes, don't engage with them. So part of this is that we have been fearing to not being able to cope with this connection. In Christianity context, it was connected to evil. Oh, these beings are evil. And that's partly because the she are in wildness. And part of the Christian domestication of human consciousness has been to get away from wildness and into a well-structured world where everything is under control. This has nothing to do with Christ, but it has a lot to do with theology. So this is part of it. And another part of it is also understandable. If you are not used to open up to wildness, then it can be very scary to encounter. Also because it opens up to all parts of our nature that we might have, so to speak, compartmentalized into small boxes of predictive actions. So parts of our instinctual nature, our sexuality, our immediate innocent presence, it's out of control. So we need to put it into a box where we can control it. And that's my best offer in why it's a common idea that it's dangerous to connect with the she. It's completely rubbish. It's not dangerous to connect with the she. Tiffany asks, do you have any suggestions on how to exercise use of the pause in really intense situations? The only thing I can say is breathe. My suggestion is breathe. Just connect with your breathing for a moment. This could help you. It's difficult because when you're in intense situation, breathe means try to just slow down your breathing. Jan says, if you don't give the proper respect, it can be dangerous, just as with nature. Of course, if you don't approach the she with a simple respect, you end up being, rejected, or you can also get a response that is, poof, get off my back. Because if there's no friendliness, you cannot expect mutuality from that front. But my own experience is that there's such a forthcoming way from the she. I hope you can hear me again, Dawny. Thank you for the inspiration. I'll not lose my innocent wildness. It is sometimes challenging here to do so. Thank you. From Suzanne King, I thank you back to you. I try to see the last ones. As he leans in and out, his microphone is picking him up differently. You could just turn up your volume. Yes, I'm sorry about this. Okay, I go further down. This has been amazing. Thank you so much from Sidhe. Thank you. And Lisa says, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, gifts, and especially the focus on simplicity. I'm hearing loss. So every time you said pulsing, I heard pulsing. So that is funny. Yes. And Kara says, agreed, Sidhe. Thank you so much, Soren. It's been a fantastic journey. Thank you. And Mary C says, RJ Stewart, I'm getting there. We are close to closing. I know that. I'm trying to get it. RJ Stewart's inner contacts in his book, Power Within the Land, gave a fascinating glimpse of three utterances describing first the fairy spirits being drawn in partial manifestation in Earth. The second utterance was humans manifesting in Earth to be a balance between stellar realm and Earth realm. In between those was the animal realm manifesting in innocence. It is anticipated that these three realms will, in alliance with each other, threefold alliance, become complete entities. So much more to this. I warmly recommend R.J. Stewart's books, and I have also read Power Within the Land. I've read 4 of his books relating especially more to the she, and that has been great. Eric Morris, thank you, Soren. Absolutely enlightening. Same back to all of you. I love being here. Brendan says, I met a fairy who was incarnated in physical body, but remembered his powers and used them. He had an enticing aura and embraced him as a friend, but he was very chaotic and close to coyote energy. I think this has more to do with the way his fairness was refracted through his humaneness. His fairiness was refracted into his humaneness than that she are innately dangerous. That's a very good point. You can hear again, Donnie. That's great. Annabelle says, thank you, Soren. Your enthusiasm and excitement is contagious. I'm learning a lot. Thank you. And Donnie says, will you be doing more tours? Yes, I can end up with this. I'm doing workshops. I've been doing workshops in US before the COVID. I've been doing workshops, I think, 7-8 times in US. I will be doing workshops internationally as demand and COVID allows. I'm doing a lot of workshops in Denmark, of course. I'm writing books in English and Danish. I'm having individual sessions with people more therapeutic in nature, but also including the she dimension, also online. And then I arrange tours. Yes, last year I arranged a tour to the Faroe Islands, and it was an international group, and it was great. I have also been arranging 2 international tours in collaboration with Jeremy to Ireland, and in total it was 50 people, 20 people, 25 people and 25 people, and that was the year before last year, and it was amazing. Yes, I would love to do more tours to Ireland and to the Faroe Islands. This coming summer, I'm only doing it to the Faroe Islands for Danes or Danish-speaking people, but it will come up again, yes. And I have a newsletter. So if you go to Soren, H-A-U-G-E, SorenHauge.com, and you go down, you scroll down to the bottom on the front page of my website, SorenHauge.com, SorenHauge.com. At the bottom, you can click and get to my English newsletter. And this brings me to the end, because we are past 9 o'clock. So I leave it to you, Skidder, to guide us into this end.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Soren. So
Thank
I'm
you.
going to invite everybody to unmute themselves, and after the goodbyes here, we'll see you at 4 o'clock.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you
so much.
See you.
Wonderful.
Mahalo. Thank you.
Elven Hearts.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Elven Hearts.
Oh, sweet.